Help us monitor your progress in your fight to cut poverty in half within 10 years. Get through the presidential race, then it'll be 2009. What should we be looking for specifically that'll give us some sense about whether this is going anywhere?
There's a very clear early indicator, which is whether the President of the United States has created at least a cabinet-level position responsible for dealing with poverty in America and the connection between that and the issue of extreme poverty in the world. One person at the top responsible for that. If that's been done and it's married to appropriate authority, infrastructure, and money, then that's serious. If, on the other hand, they're just mouthing words, it's the same old stuff that we've heard for decades. I mean, real action is what's going to be required, and my own view is that a cabinet-level position is needed. In fact, you asked me earlier about John McCain. One of the reasons I spoke to John McCain is on April the 4th, the anniversary of the death of Martin Luther King. Martin III called me and said, all right, I got Obama, I got Clinton, but I don't have McCain. Will you call him? And I did. And he didn't agree to a cabinet-level position, but he actually made a very strong statement about what he was willing to do. I'm still not for him.
Maybe if he proposes the cabinet-level position. And so is the contrary true? If we're looking for signs this is falling apart next year, follow the money, maybe?
Yeah. If you don't hear the President of the United States talking about this issue, addressing it on national television, mentioning it or speaking about it in the inaugural address, then those are clearly danger signs.
Now, I was milling around here, meeting as many people as I could before we got together here, and they all want me to ask you, well, a number of people I met want me to ask you about Senator Obama and the perception that he's moving to the political center now that the general election race is on. Do you see that?
Well, let me say, first of all, I think historically it is a normal thing to have happen. I think that some of the things that Barack is being accused of are not fair and not right. Listen, there's nobody in, I ran against him, so there are obviously some things that I don't completely agree with him on. But, for example, suggesting his Iraq policy has changed is just not true. It hasn't changed. What I hear him say today is exactly the same thing I've heard him say throughout the campaign. And when he talks about meeting with military leaders on the ground, and I think that's part of what this trip that's going on now is about, that's something any responsible president of the United States would do. There's nothing unusual about that. There are some areas, you know, where, for example, I am violently opposed to the telecom companies getting immunity for violating the law. I think in his defense, he believed. I don't think he supported that either. I think his position was there was a lot of other things in the bill that we needed badly, and because we needed those, he was willing to live with that.
All right, but what about the thumbs up for the Supreme Court decision on the D.C. handgun ban?
Well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let him speak for himself. My view is a lot easier for people like me and us to sit around and criticize somebody who's clearly a progressive. And anybody who thinks he's not a progressive is not paying attention. This guy is clearly a progressive, and he spent his life fighting for these causes, and I think he's committed to them.
I missed an opportunity earlier when you were talking about what might be termed the anti-poverty czar or the fairness czar. You want that job?
I'm not looking for a job.
You don't need new income to make ends meet?
What I want to do...
I warned you this one would be more freewheeling than that last one.
I'm going to ignore that.
Okay.
What I want to do is I want to give voice to people who need a voice in this country. That's what my life is about. If that's in government, that's great. If it's not in government, that's fine. Whatever place it finds itself is perfectly fine with me. I mean, I look at what people like, what Al Gore has done. on climate change, and he's done a remarkable job outside of government. You don't have to be in government to change things. But that doesn't mean government's certainly a possibility too.
Senator Obama has been extraordinarily good at raising a lot of money, but in smaller contributions, not having to just go to the same old big money sources that have had such an overbearing role, I think, in our democracy heretofore. There's an argument that that leads to more progressive policy, maybe even more radical policy once he gets into office. He's not beholden to the folks who've had such a strong say. What do you think? Will it translate his fundraising technique into more sweeping positive change?
I think it's very healthy. I think it gives him, give anybody, but it gives him a freedom that otherwise would not exist. It's one of the reasons I've always been a strong supporter. I think we ought to publicly finance every campaign in America. But that aside, what it means in the context of this particular campaign is he is much less beholden than previous presidential candidates have been to big dollar donors, which means he can, if he's willing to lead on it, and I believe he is, create real transformational change, which is what America desperately needs. Little things, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Little things will not address the challenges this country's faced with. They will not. Little mini steps and baby steps and, being careful and cautious will not do it. And we need bold and strong, powerful ideas that the president's willing to stand behind. That's what we need. And we need 60 seats in the Senate.
How's it going in the House and Senate? What's your view on that?
The one thing that I am absolutely convinced of is that we will pick up a significant number of seats in the House, we being the Democrats. We'll pick up a significant number of seats in the Senate. The question there is, do we get to 60? A lot of things would have to fall into place for that to happen, but I think we've got a great chance. So I feel very optimistic about both those.
I heard you when you said that issues should not be taken on piecemeal, that there's power in building a movement around looking at this broadly. That said, the new president will come in, and the conventional wisdom is they'll have 1, 2, maybe 3 big domestic or international policy issues that they can focus on. And there'll be a big fight over that. Is it going to be climate change, energy policy? Is it going to be the economy? Is it going to be the war in Iraq and Afghanistan? Do you think you're going to get poverty in there?
Yeah, I do. And I think I'll get it in there, number one, because I think Obama will be elected. Number two, I've already gotten I trust him, and I've gotten a personal commitment from him on this subject. I don't think it's the only thing. The president's got responsibility to do a lot of things, but it's pretty obvious what the big issues are. I mean, the war, the economy, energy, health care. I mean, it's very hard to get anybody to disagree with those being the major issues facing the country.
Do you ever wonder, this is a perverse question, but I've often heard people mull this over, do you think a Democrat really wants to inherit what they're going to inherit if they become president?
No, that's a good question. That's a good question. Yes, because as much as I love the Democratic Party and as much as I love our candidate for the Democratic Party for president, those things pale in comparison to the needs of the country and the world. And what ultimately matters is we've got to move America. We need to quit worrying about political consequences and move America, and America desperately needs to be moved in the right direction. And we have to win the election to do that.
Well, Senator Edwards, they wanted us to go till 7:30, went to 7:34. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you. I really appreciate it.